There are many examples in the Bible of men and women who resisted the world and its enticements. What is it that helped them to put up a fight against these traps and pitfalls? What enabled them to deal with the world so effectively? How do they view the world, and what attitude do we need to have in order to be successful? We are now going to answer these and other questions as Brother Suter discusses the subject, The World is a Dangerous Environment. This is going to be interesting. Brother Suter, please.
Well, she said, I felt absolutely nothing but fear. I could neither eat, I couldn't sleep, and fear clawed at my mind and my body, and I just shook. Now that's what a little girl who was fearful of the Germans finding her in the Second World War, she was hiding from them, and her name was Anne Frank, and she lived from 1929, 1945. She was only 16 years old. And she wrote the diary of Anne Frank. Now, sometimes we may feel like she did because of world conditions or because of depression or because of age or because of pressures or anxieties of some kind. And we say, well, it doesn't happen every day. Well, sometimes for some of us it does happen every day, just as it did for her. The devil wants to put pressure on us, and it can be physical, emotional, mental, because where are we living? What time period are we living? We go out in the ministry, we tell people, look, let me show you this in 2 Timothy chapter 3. So if that's the case, then we're in the same game. We're living in critical times, hard to deal with, according to what Paul said to Timothy. So those that are in the world, they have to deal with the same things we do. The difference is we know where we are in the stream of time. We know what these conditions mean for us. That energizes us to some degree. But we still have to put up with the problems and the difficulties and the physical dangers that are around us every day. That means that we have to do exactly what this theme of the Circuit Assembly is all about, and that is to stay away from the world. Because, let's face it, they'd love us if we were part of the world. I mean, come on, we have good manners, we have good morals, we love one another, and now they want to get close to us. That's why our young people, our children in school, male or female, have trouble because the people around them like us so much because of the way we conduct our life. But we're not going to care whether they hate us because we're not going to be a part of that system. We're not going to be a part of what they want us to be. Now, this morning we read John 17, verse 15, where Jesus asked his Father to look after us. You remember that? Well, now, why do we need that? Well, because the system is designed to prevent us from maintaining our integrity. Satan, the devil, would like us to lose our spirituality. Because when we lose spirituality, that means we draw away from God. And what happens when we draw away from our Creator? Simple. We don't talk about Him anymore. And that's how subtle that is. And that's all Satan wants. He doesn't care about anything else. He wants us to not talk about the kingdom and our Creator. That's why Paul had to make this comment in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 26, when he wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:26. Now, friends, notice, try to pick out these two words. Now, there are two words there that have a bearing on us. There's two words, and then Paul told them there was something they were going to have to do. But now in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 26, last verse, it says, and they may come back to their proper senses out from the snare of the devil, seeing that they have been caught alive by him for the will of that one. What were the two words? Snare and caught. What does that tell you? Snare and caught. That means there has to be some kind of bait. There's some kind of trap. And that's why Paul said to them, and that they may come back to their proper senses out from a snare of the devil. So we have to come back to our proper senses. Use our senses so that we won't be caught. Now that metaphor that he's using is that of a hunter. Now you think of literal traps. I mean, literal traps, they're effective. The animal either likes the bait, he likes whether it's cheese or peanut butter or guacamole, whatever. The animal, the little or big, likes the bait. So they take it. They're curious. They may be in an area where you can put a hole in the ground and they'll fall into it because they're curious about that area. Well, that's what Paul is saying to Timothy, that we can be in that situation. He said it to the early Christians. Obviously, it fits with us too. But now we know that trap is going to have a negative effect on us, just as in the case of animals. But now when animals, they see something they like, it's in a trap or it's in a snare or something, they don't look at that and they're not able to think from that point on. Like, okay, if I get in this trap, here's what it's going to do to me later. Well, of course not. They're animals. But we're not. We can determine this course of action. Where's it going to take me? So they fall victim. That's the end. But for us, there are things that could affect us. We've been warned about them. Curiosity is a wonderful thing. Probably a lot of us here are in the truth because we're curious. But when it comes to reading material or music or movies or video games, if there's some content there that's not good for us, that's the environment we're in. It's dangerous for us. And we've been told, and now we need to respond. Bad association is going to make us act like them. Disrespect for authority. The idea that everyone is doing it. Why can't I do it? So we are in the environment with these people. So what we need to do is just kind of review some of these traps that could have a bearing on us, and why we need to bring our thinking in harmony with God's way of thinking. Now, this last year, you friends, you went to your district convention, I think August or something, right toward the end of the service year anyway. And that was, it's not that district convention we're talking about. We're talking about the one before that, which would have been in 2009. There was a talk that dealt with 5 traps. It was a symposium, one at a time. 5 traps. Now, if you don't remember them, that's fine. But it was given. The talk was given. I can tell you that. And now what we're going to do is just review them. And if you remember, that's great. You don't have to raise your hand. It's not going to be a question and answer. But the first one that the brother talked about was fire. Now, you may remember what it is, but I'll give you a clue. James chapter 3, verse 5 through 12. James takes 8 verses, and he talks about this subject. And then he used one illustration after another to make a point that fire was the trap of the wrong use of speech. Now, there are a number of things that we talk about. We can get in trouble over some, but we think of elders. We give counsel off the top of our head. We're going to have some problems. So we have to study, make sure we know what we're talking about, and we give direction to the friends. We stumble many times, the Bible says, doesn't it? But stumbling in word is probably the most frequent and potentially damaging shortcoming that any of us can have. That we say things that we really shouldn't. I mean, that's why Paul used the example in the Bible. He said, you can take a huge horse, put a bridle in his mouth and make him do anything he wants. You can take a ship with a little rudder and turn in any direction. And then he says, and now we've got this human. He's got this little thing in his mouth, and it'll make him go in any direction that it goes. So that's why he said, and yet it makes great brags. So this use of speech could be very, very detrimental to us. As a matter of fact, if it's damaging and slanderous and it's maybe some false teaching, we could end up being expelled from the Christian congregation because it ends up being reviling some. Now, some traps that they talked about at our district convention, they were kind of complicated. It was a little hard to figure out. Some were very easy to figure out. And this is one of those easy ones, and that was the pit. A pit, a well, a hole in the ground, whatever it might be. And let's read 2 verses, and then we'll see for sure that we got it, because it's in Proverbs is where these verses are. We're going to read 2 verses, but they're in 2 chapters right together. So in Proverbs chapter 22, we're going to look at verse 14, and the other is in 23. So 22:14. Now here's the description. It's helping us understand what this pit is. Now it says in verse 14, the mouth of the strange woman is a deep pit. The one denounced by Jehovah will fall into it. Now before we go there, let's go back to 23:27. Now it says, for a prostitute is a deep pit, and a foreign woman is a narrow well. Any question as to what the pit represents? We think of the dangers of the proliferation of promiscuity, illicit sex. People today are saying it makes you so happy, and yet it's really a heartache and difficult, because they think they're lovers of pleasures, and that's going to be beneficial. It isn't. Pleasure is going to cause us to go in the wrong direction. As a matter of fact, Plato, the philosopher, he made this comment. He said, pleasure is the bait of sin. And he knew what he's talking about. Now, the third trap was the snare. And in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 25, it's probably, we should read that. But in Proverbs 29:25, notice here there's 2 ways that a Christian can go. One is okay, one is not okay. Proverbs 29:25. I'm sorry, I should have told you to keep your Bible open. 29:25. Now it says, trembling at men is what lays the snare. So that's the one possibility. But he that is trusting in Jehovah will be protected. So that's the good part. So there's the fear of man, and it really takes courage, doesn't it? It takes moral courage to stand up to people and say, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't do that. It takes courage to get up and walk out of a theater or turn off the computer or the television when indecent images appear. It calls for courage when we have to stand up against peer pressure, cut off bad association, tell those that want to do bad things, we don't do that. And it requires courage to uphold God's law in the face of our relatives, our friends, our schoolmates, neighbors, and just tell them we do things by the Bible. Now remember the illustration that Jesus used, and if you recall, does anyone see this fly that's up here with me? Sorry, I had to get him because he's a mosquito, and I don't want to swell up here on the platform. So if my hand starts to swell, you'll know that he's stuck me. All right, can you come back to the program now? Okay, good. That was just to keep you awake for the next 10 minutes or so. Brother Weaver used Matthew 13, verse 22, and it says, as for the one sown among thorns, this is the one hearing the word, but the anxiety, the system of things, deceptive power of riches. You remember what it says it does? It chokes the word. Now that's the fourth trap. And the trap is materialism. Because Jesus said, the anxiety, the system of things, deceptive power of riches. It chokes. Now that word, when it says choke, the word, that the Greek word for choke, it means to strangle completely. Strangle completely. Now friends, when we hear a joke more than once, a couple times, we say, come on, I've heard that one, I don't need that one. But when we hear an illustration more than once, and especially if it fits, we say, okay, I can handle this. And why I say that, because this next illustration we're going to use, you've probably already heard it. It's about the strangler fig. Strangler fig tree. What it does is it grows alongside of a healthy tree. It puts its roots down in the ground. And then the little fine roots of the strangler fig grow out into the earth and start to intertwine with the tree's roots. It starts to suck up all the nutrients in the soil. So now the tree doesn't have any nutrients. Now not only does it take it from the ground, but it also moves up the side, wraps it around the tree, gets up above the tree, puts out leaves that now keep the tree from getting sunshine. Eventually, the tree dies. Now that takes about 10 years to do that. But eventually that tree is gone. It has just disappeared, and all that's there is the strangler fig. Now what's the application of that? Well, we have this anxiety, materialism, in this system, get rich, be comfortable, this lifestyle that gradually, very gradually, slowly, steady, progressively, little by little, absorbs all of our time, all of our energy. Now what? We have little time for spiritual things. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day. Come on. I mean, what are we going to do? We spend it all doing one thing. We can't do something else. So we can't study, go in service, go to meetings, all those things. Now we become easy prey for the devil. Now we come to this fifth trap, and that's the trap that crushes, which is one of those that is kind of hard to figure out, but we'll get there. And what the sin is that crushes is it's an inordinate, unreasonable, excessive, extreme, and undue guilt. Have we ever known anybody that they feel so guilty about what they've done that they feel Jehovah can't forgive them, no matter how repentant they are? Well, that's what Satan the devil wants us to think. As a matter of fact, David made a comment in Psalm 38, verse 4 and 8. He said, "For my own heirs have passed over my head like a heavy load. They are too heavy for me. I've grown numb and become crushed to an extreme degree. I've roared to the groaning of my heart." That's a trap. That's a trap for us because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having some remorse for doing something wrong. That's kind of healthy, but if it moves us to repent, but if we don't feel that the Creator can forgive us, then we condemn ourselves. And now we're saying, where does the ransom sacrifice of Christ come in? And we become swallowed up by it. I mean, let's face it. Jehovah knows that we're imperfect. He knows that we're made of dust. That's what Psalm 103:14 says. He realizes that we do things that are sometimes just downright dumb. He understands that. As a matter of fact, it says He is the formation of us. He formed us. So He's the potter. So He has the power and will forgive. As a matter of fact, if you remember that Jesus said that we're supposed to ask Jehovah in prayer and say, "Forgive us our debts." Now what that means is that Jehovah is likening our sinning against Him to a debt. So we owe Him something. So Jesus comes, pays the debt, and then Jehovah forgives us. Now can we imagine Jehovah saying, "Okay, I'll forget the debt. You don't owe me anything at all. Don't worry about it anymore." And we say, "Oh, thank you." And a few months later, He says, "You know what? I don't think I'm going to forgive you. I want it back. Come on, you owe me something." He's not going to do that. That's not the way He works. And we know that. Now, considering those 5 traps, I mean, come on, they're not the only ones that are traps for us. I mean, we talked a little bit about curiosity, but that can get us in some serious trouble. It's not a bad thing if we keep it under control, but you think of some of the friends that are getting into the websites that are dealing with apostates. It changes their way of thinking. Their attitudes are changing. They become independent, proud, and resentful. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 says, "The sin that easily entangles." And we know what that is. The sin that easily entangles is a loss of faith. When we lose our faith, we stop worrying about God's day. Those with faith, they're the ones who put Jehovah's day first. So that's why we have to keep our faith. Easy to give up, but hard to maintain. So we want to recognize that to not see the end, to keep looking for the end, is good for us. It lets us know why we serve God. Not for some reward necessarily, but we want to serve God to make a reply. The devil is not correct, and the Jehovah does have individuals who are going to serve him. And we know that's an issue because that's what happened in the book of Job, didn't it? Chapter 1, 2, 3. You remember that Jehovah said to the devil that Job was blameless, he was upright, he was God-fearing. Now, can you imagine that conversation? Jehovah says to the devil, Job is a good man, blameless, upright. And the devil, within seconds of him saying that, the devil said, is it for nothing that Job has feared God? Doesn't he fear you because you put a hedge around him? You protect him. You give him everything he wants. In Job chapter 1, verse 10, Satan said, you put a hedge around him. Now, friends, I'd like you to think about that, especially young people. Have you ever heard the comment, you can't do anything in the truth? It's so confining. The kids say it. It's so confining. I can't go to parties. I can't drink. And all these things they can't do because they're Jehovah's Witnesses. The next time you hear that, or the next time you want to say that, think about Job and who complained about the hedge. It wasn't Job. Job could care less. He was glad he had a hedge around him. He was glad he had the restrictions on him. It was a protection for him. As soon as that hedge came down, he was in trouble. But Satan was the one who said that he's deprived somehow because of not having all these things that he would like to do. Now, something else is that we need to be vigilant. We need to recognize that Satan tries a lot of different traps. It doesn't have to be just one or two. But there are three areas that we want to consider, and it doesn't matter our age or how long we've been in the truth. We want to talk about just three things that can benefit us to help us in this very dangerous environment that we find ourselves in. Now, the first one is obvious. That's we need to study the Bible. Because that way we're going to identify Satan's traps. And how does the Bible help us? Well, Psalm 119, 105, we don't need to read that. It says we have a light for our foot and a light for our roadway out in front of us. So the Bible doesn't make things disappear necessarily. It just helps us to deal with the problem. Sometimes they may disappear, but the Bible just puts light on things, and then we can make right decisions. Here in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11, it tells us what's needed and why we can deal with this system. In 2 Corinthians chapter 2, 2 Corinthians 2, verse 11. Now, it says simply that we may not be overreached by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his designs. Now, how could we not, we're not ignorant of his designs. How can that happen? Well, because we read the Bible. We know what it says. The organization is helping us to understand what we need to do in a very dark world, a dark society. So that means we develop discernment. So everybody, all of us want discernment. The world wants discernment, the ability to see something before it happens. You know, a synonym for the word discernment is perspicacious or perspicacity. That's a neat word, isn't it? I'm not going to tell you how to spell it either. Perspicacity. Now, here's how you define it. Perspicacious. It's an acute mental vision, sharpness, insightfulness, perceptiveness. The animal that steps his foot into a trap doesn't think, if I do that, it's going to hurt my foot and I will probably lose my leg. Doesn't think that. Humans can. We can look at something and say, well, I know where that's going to lead me. We learn what Bible principles are. We have insight. We have perception, mental vision. And we can see the outcome. And we know that Jehovah has the power to do it, to help us to deal with these problems that we have to face. Scientists today, they're just laboring to unlock some of the secrets of the universe. They're just amazed at what they're finding. Our sun is a medium-sized star. It produces as much energy has 100 billion hydrogen bombs exploding every second. Now, if the Creator can put that together, obviously He's going to be able to direct us. He's given us free will, that's true. Moral capacity, reason, potential for spirituality, and we're grateful for that. But He's also giving us principles that we can live by. We have the principle of how we can have a relationship with our Creator. We love Jehovah God with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. We have principles that we can deal with fellow humans. All things you want them to do, we do them. We have the way we worship. We don't isolate ourselves. We consider one another and cite to love and fine works. And every aspect of life is taken care of by 1 Corinthians 10, verse 31, whether you're eating or drinking, do all things for God's glory. So here are the principles. We live by those. It means that we're guided, whether it be entertainment, association, music, reading material. Now, it may seem confining, but it's protection. It just protects us. So we grow in knowledge. We're able to deal with the pressures around us. We have tangible evidence that living by Bible principles is beneficial. We abstain from smoking. We live moral lives. We have respect for the sanctity of blood. We've avoided becoming victims of certain diseases because of that. So we obey God. We obey Jehovah not because of what we're going to receive. I mean, that's nice. But we obey God because we love Him, because He deserves our worship, and because it's the right thing to do. Now, the second way is that we're going to be able to live in this dangerous world and resist Satan's traps, is what the psalmist said in Psalm 97:10. He said, "You lovers of Jehovah hate what is bad." We have to learn how to hate the bait. That's all. Just hate the one that is delivering. See, we go into the kingdom hall, we say, well, there's a table of Jehovah. We partake of the table of Jehovah. Well, you know what? The Bible also says that Satan the devil has a table. Now, if Satan the devil has a table, and he also has food that he puts on the table, that means that there has to be someone who's cooking it. And we know who cooks it. And we hate the cook, because he's cooking up immorality, bad association, materialism. And one of the most popular dishes that he's promoting now is spiritism. And that's dangerous. You know, friends, one of the most money-making movie in the history of movie-making was on demonism, spiritism. I'm not going to tell you the name of the movie either. So we need to hate the fry cook, hate what God hates, and then we are going to benefit. Hating what Jehovah hates. That's good for us. The things that the devil, the demons provide for people today, they accept it. They're grateful. They're happy for it. They love it. Now, the third and final way we can resist the trap of Satan the devil is to do what Proverbs 22. Now, we talked about this just a little bit ago. Proverbs 22, verse 3. And I'd like you to notice as we read Proverbs 22:3, notice the word perspicacity. You didn't think it was in the Bible, didn't you? Well, it really isn't, but that's okay. You can look and see what it says there in Proverbs 22, verse 3. Proverbs 22 and verse 3. Now it says shrewd. Well, now that was one of the definitions, wasn't it, for perspicacity or perspicacious? Shrewd. Shrewd is the one that has seen the calamity, proceeds to conceal himself, but the inexperienced who pass along must suffer the penalty. Inexperienced just charge right on. Those who are shrewd, they see the outcome before it happens. So they avoid the bad consequences. You've heard the saying, experience is the best teacher. What do you think? Experience is the best teacher. What do you think? Is that good? Is that a good idea? Do you know how the rest of that goes? Experience is the best teacher for a fool who will learn no other way. That's why experience is not the best teacher. See, we learn because someone else does it and then says that's not a real good idea. I mean, if someone jumped off the roof of this assembly hall out here where the concrete is, head first, lands on the concrete, you go over and you say to them, what do you think? Good idea? They say no, just before they drop dead. Now, do we have to get on the roof and jump off because we want to feel the same thing they did? That would be stupid, wouldn't it? And yet it happens. We're in congregation where we know somebody gets disfellowshipped, and eventually we find out what they were disfellowshipped for. And then all of a sudden we end up getting disfellowship for the same thing. That doesn't make sense. That's saying, well, that's them and I'm experience. You don't have to experience that kind of thing. We are followers of Christ doing things His way. We see things before they take place. So we have many fine examples. In the Bible, we have examples in our congregations that benefit us. And we don't have to fear what man can do to us. They've been trying for centuries to get Jehovah's people to compromise. And so we just pray that we keep our good conscience, keep clean before our God. But Satan isn't going to let up. He's going to continue to create an environment that makes this world a dangerous place for Christians. And that means that we have to take advantage of what Jehovah provides for us, His Word, His organization, and the training so that we can identify and avoid Satan's traps. And as Christians, there's no question that we have to remain no part of this very dangerous world if we want to survive the world's coming destruction. And yes, it is true. It is going to cost us something to be a Christian. But remember, it's going to cost us more not to be one.